why
Yeah.
it's so overrated. You know what I mean?
One out of 100. XM is sometimes one of the most
All right, guys, welcome to It's More Than Just Money, where we delve into conversations with entrepreneurs, change makers, and industry leaders that are making a difference in the South African business landscape and abroad. Now, remember, if you haven't subscribed, please click on that subscribe button, click on that notifications bell so that you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. And you must remember, if you are in the Free State, we've got the It's More Than Just Money Business and Property Seminar on the 3rd of May, which is literally in the next coming few weeks. Please check your tickets on web tickets. Click on the link in the description box so that you don't miss the upcoming seminar. We've got Tapelo Jonas as one of our speakers. He's an entrepreneur, he's a business owner, as well as a property investor. But today, that's not the focus. Today, I'm sitting with Mr. Thabo Makama, who is a South African business executive and consultant with extensive experience in strategic advisory services. He's the founder and CEO of T. Makama and Partners, TMP Africa. He is a consulting firm that provides services to multinational corporations, local private companies, and public sector organizations. His clientele includes companies such as Barlow World, Microsoft, Accenture, Air Liquid, and Adept IT. In addition to his role at TMP Africa, Mr. Makama serves as the chairman of the board of trustees for the BMW Enterprise and Supplier Development Trust for Sub-Saharan Africa and is the chairperson-elect of the Rustenburg Community Development Trust. He is also active in the entrepreneurial community as a startup and small business coach. He hosts the T Junction Spaces podcast, where he discusses topics related to business, innovation, and development. He has been recognized as Stanford University GIC IX certified instructor and is known for his motivational speaking and investment insights. Through various roles, Mr. Makama established himself as a key figure in strategic consulting, business development, and community upliftment within South Africa. That's a long resume.
You read it.
Yo.
You went for the long version. I was wondering, when is this guy going to stop? I thought 4 lines would have sufficed.
But when you looking at your journey,
Yeah.
where you started and where you are now, you could only be able to read somebody's resume later on. At the beginning of your journey, there's no resume as big as this to read. When you hear it now and looking back to where you started, 1, how do you feel? And 2, how do you then narrate the story of how you started?
Sure. First and foremost, thanks a lot for the opportunity. I think you and I have been threatening
Yeah.
to
Too
have a
many
very-
times.
Threatened too many times to have such a deep conversation and actually have conversations around entrepreneurship and the development of our people. And I think 20 years, to be exact, is how long I have been toying with being in a structured environment. So from varsity, post-varsity to where I am now, 20 years. And being an entrepreneur, it goes to back when I was in primary school. And I know people like to say, oh, but that's the story that we always hear. Or I started with Regisa Magwinya, but it was when the seed was planted. So it's more than 20 years, to be exact. So when I look at my
When you say you started in primary and it's more than 20 years,
Yeah.
people will think you are 27 years old. They're like, in primary school.
In primary school,
That's
yeah.
where it started.
No. I'm past my 40s now. My daughter, just to give an indication, my daughter's turning 21 or 21 in March.
Yeah.
Yeah, my firstborn turned 21 in March. So that's how old I am.
So if you include the primary school, entrepreneurial activities, the
Sure.
20 years
Standard
plus the many
so
years.
Standard 4, Standard 5, plus another long term. So yeah, we're crossing more. Yeah,
Yeah, 30 years of,
of being exposed to how to make money.
yes. And take
Yeah.
us through it. Take us through it.
Look, it's a very. I want to first answer the question around how does it feel like when someone reads your resume, right? And it's a bio for me more than the resume, because my resume is listed of my other achievements, what have I done, where I was. I've worked both in the private and public sector. So my first job, I worked at Kudusport, at Transwerk in
Kudusport
Pretoria.
is an area.
Kudusport is an area out before Silverton in Pretoria. And I worked in Transnet Rail Engineering, what is called now. But at that time, it was called Transwerk. So it used to be still heavy with the Afrikaans name. And I was paying back my dues as a bursar, bursary recipient of Spoornet. So, which is a very beautiful story, by the way, in terms of how I got my bursary. I never got my bursary when I was still in matric. I got it in my first year when I was at Wits Technikon. And I actually went and looked for a bursary in Braamfontein. I went to probably 4 companies. Cold calling, straight walk into the place, ask them, where's HR, where can I get bursary forms? And out of those companies, I went to Race Relations, I went to YMCA, I went to the municipality, I went, at that time, there was another organization which was in the, I think it was in the technology space, I just don't remember the name. I had applied also online for Anglo-American. I had also applied for SAA. So a few bursary institutions. But then the one which really made an impact was Spoornet, because there I walked in and I asked to go to the HR floor to get the forms. And one guy said, no, man, avalila ma bursary. And I was like, okay, but can I not go? I was like, no. And being fast, I looked which floor it was. And I saw it was, I think it was the 4th floor or something. Olga Bombas was the lady who was there as the person who does, and big ups to her, because she gave me one of the biggest opportunities in my life.
Olga Bombas.
Yeah, Olga Bombas. So when this security guard was busy with other things, I went into the lift, I pressed, I went up. And then I went to the HR, and I said, please, can I have the forms? They said, but the things is closed. Then I said, please, I need this thing. But I don't think it was closed. They had received a lot of applications. Mm-hmm. So I filled in the forms, got my parents to sign, and I gave the forms. Fast track, I was working for Spoornet. But I needed to go in and take a chance.
And what were you studying at the time?
I was studying logistics management. It was actually my 3rd choice. But I needed to study something at that time, because when I applied for cost accounting and BCom informatics, or at that time it was diploma informatics and I was going to do BTech informatics, I couldn't get both of those. And so I went for logistics. And the reason I went for logistics was because somebody was doing logistics and they were driving a Jetta CLI at that time. And I thought this would be an alternative for me.
Because if this guy can afford
If this guy
car,
can afford Jetta CLI at that time, if he's at
2003 model.
not even, no, it was a 90, I think it was 99, 98 model at that time. And I was like, flip, 2020, Pila, blind. So I was like, I'm going for that one. So, and again, it was, I think, the influence of people. Funny enough, he was also working in Spoornet. So you can just see how the mind is wired, right? This guy works at Spoornet. He works in logistics. He's driving a Jetta. It means I can become that guy. In fact, I will become that guy. And I'll become better. He represented an element of success. So it was a point of reference.
Sure.
Which is an element that we need. And this is what people don't understand. When you don't see something, you'd never know how it really is. You have no point of reference. So I had a point of reference. I knew a car I wanted to drive. I knew a person I wanted to emulate. I knew where he was working. And I wanted to be in that same space for me to be able to say I have gotten to a certain level, which is my goals. But then lo and behold, you work in the space, you get over the period like, okay, fine. How long is this going to take me, you know? What I didn't factor in was a timing factor to say, this guy has been working for long. He's a senior to me, and that's why he can afford a Jetta.
Ah, okay.
You see?
He had spent
now-
so many
he had spent
years
so
there.
many years, right? So I go, I graduate. I want to be there, you know, and get that amount of money and stuff like that. But the reality hits is that, you know what, you've got money that you're going to earn, and you've got your bursary to pay back. So I had to work back the bursary. So 20 years for me carries a lot of memories around lessons learned around the use of money, time value for money. You and I have had a conversation around time value for money and the understanding of money, because not everybody understands money in a construct that we've been taught. Everybody understands money in a construct that they think they know, which can be also distorted.
What does that mean?
We deviate now, but
I want to hear that part, because that train of thought will come back, but that
Yeah.
train of thought, everybody thinks they know money, but it's only based on the construct at which they've been taught. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
So, money is a learned trade of life. Money is a learned concept. So when you understand time, value for money, you understand usage, you understand investment, you understand return on investment. People don't understand the fact that money has its own language. Money has its own respect, and money has its own value system, right? What we are taught when we grow up, money is a means by which expenditures can be covered. So in other words, it's a buying means. It's not a means by which we can improve our lives. It's not a means by which we can improve our children's lives. It's not a means by which we can generationally impact the outcome of the livelihoodness of the people. And that is taught. White people teach their kids that construct. They understand what is return on investment. We don't have such words in our language. We can have translations, but we don't have a direct word. We don't have a word that says investment in our language. But we have words that are similar, which can be borrowed, which is planting. And then when you plant a seed, you expect that there would be a seed that germinates. But then we attach that to hard work, right? You got to plow, you got to plant, you got to water, and then it will grow. To what extent it is dependent on you on the fruitages of that particular plant that you put? Probably 50%. Because even if you put a seed in there that is meant to give you fruits, you have no bearing on the size of fruit if you have not prepared the ground, you have not gone to lengths to create that. Now, when you look at investments are things that are driven through a portfolio that is researched, a portfolio that is understood, a portfolio that may, with high risk, high return, right? What risk is there by planting a seed in there? Weather.
I was about to say.
Exactly. It's the only risk, right? Or third force that will come in and take the thing out. It's not a studied method. It is not a full understanding of the fact that when you now go into investment, you look at political, economical, different multiple forces that are outside of your control that you then can prevent and work at making sure that your return on investment is secured. So you see, all of these are languages of money, which we are never taught. But once you get to teach yourself the language of money, you then have the construct of understanding how to respect money, how to spend wisely, how to invest money, how to use money to make money, and how to attract money. So these things are very important in that it is not an accident when you start seeing people that have built wealth, not rich people, right? People that have built wealth because they understand the language of money. They understand the language of working and investing in themselves and in others and also in their businesses to make a return. So yeah, that is what I highlighted, I think, last time when we spoke about the construct of money is taught, and we are not taught. We don't even have the language that really fully explains it to people to fully understand.
Is it something that will evolve with time, in your opinion? Or-
So it's something that people are catching up with, right? People are catching up on, and the level at which we engage on attempting to work in that construct is that we are very apologetic about it as well. We try Stockfell instead of trying ETFs and trying other things. Like, no, it's safe here because got Stockfell, I know I can see where my money is going. So yes, it's a bit of a construct, right? But then the returns are...
and even the word stock fell, we came up
Yeah.
with it. So you are right.
So you
Yeah.
see, it's within a construct that we are saying, let's move from putting money in my mattress to putting it with a few friends, and then let's see if we can save that, and then we get a return. Versus, okay, fine, what else can I invest in, or who can I invest in, so that I can be able to return the money. And I give an example, right? When Mewako Koneng, who sells tomatoes and veggies,
Kukas.
Kokasi, is looking to increase stock before money that she has made, she asks from other people to say, "Kikopa unkadime bokan," right? What do you call that? When a person gives them that particular loan, yes, they owe this individual, but the person is in effect investing in that person. One, they have calculated the risk. They see her every day. They can almost count stock by looking at the stock. They know she always sells because she's been doing it for the past 10 years. So she has a business plan and unwritten, but they've done an evaluation. And that is why they can put 200 rands in there to say, go and buy stock or saditamati or go and buy whatever. Why? Because they have seen a trend. They have seen how the business has performed. Because if the business was not performing, she would not be sitting there for 3 years. What is the risk cover? They know she has a family. They know the family depends on her being there. And so they have done their risk analysis and they put 200 rands in. They charge interest on top of that.
Ke tla o fa 200.
Ke tla fa 200,
250.
ke batla e le 250. She agrees. Why? Because her cash flow is affected. She needs to keep her clients happy. So she's doing a cash flow analysis without writing it. Those rules apply again in the business. When a loan is granted against the cash flow. The cash flow is granted against the performance of the business. When the business is performing, you have a certain risk factor. Then there's a grading against interest. Then you get repaid. You repay according to how you have behaved in the business and your credit affordability and repayment ability.
So quite interesting what you are saying, right? So say for instance, you were Kokasi. The lady has not started any business. And she comes and says, lend me 200. I want to start a business to sell tomatoes. Are you saying chances are you would not give her the money because there's no track record?
Exactly.
Versus when she comes back and says, I've done the business 6 months. You saw me. I've got X amount of people that buy from me on a daily basis. I do make some cash flow. I will be able to recover the loan and pay back the money. Lend me 200 rands. I want to buy stock.
Exactly.
The conversation is different.
Totally different.
But why is this not taught to people at a large scale to say, if you're looking for money to invest in a business, there must be a certain level of track record that either as an individual entrepreneur you've built somewhere or you've built it through that business you're looking for funding for?
Again, it's a lend environment. Now, remember what happens is that from a formal institution perspective, if I am an investor or if I'm a bank, the bank, for instance, doesn't have its own money. It uses depositors' money. People think that the bank has money. The bank doesn't have money. So the responsibility of the bank is for them to make sure that they keep the depositors' money safe, or at least they return the depositors' money with interest. So I take your money, I put it in my control, and I extend it to the next person. I have to guarantee the fact that it will come back. So if I give it to somebody that has no record, it means that I potentially 90% can throw the money back or throw the money away, right? So I have to guarantee the return of the financial income. What normally happens, and I know people always make this comment around, there's a difference between how loans are extended to white people and black people, right? Which is a reality in many instances, but it's not the only reality. You must also take into account that in our system, when we start from scratch as startups on a zero basis, we don't have record, we haven't built any record, we don't have a specific trust factor that we've built in order for somebody to invest in us, right?
Yeah, same
But
as that lady wouldn't have sold the
Exactly.
tomatoes yet.
But if that lady goes and says, I will guarantee your return of that particular money that I'm asking you from, please take a hold on my fridge and my dishwasher.
Yeah,
You understand?
it's collateral.
It's called collateral.
Yeah,
But if she says then, no, my son is working, right? And my son will be able to repay you. You know him. He works for Siemens, or he works for Spurnet. He works for Sasol. I know your son because I grew up with him,
surety.
right? Then it's surety.
Yeah,
So the same applies, is that some of the businesses that are funded, what we don't see is the guarantor, is the guarantee that is gotten from another person. The business may be brand new, but they have uncle so-and-so, so-and-so, my father will put a guarantee against that as a collateral. So we are not taught those things to say you can actually go and find a guarantor. You can find somebody who can guarantee your debt as long as they're willing to share liability of whatever you're coming into.
and then which also creates the opportunity to be able to create investment opportunity for that
Exactly.
person who's guaranteeing the loan.
Yeah.
Right. So, for instance, if I go to my uncle and said, I'm building a business, this is how big it can go, I need X amount of money. For him to stand as guarantor for me, there must be an opportunity for him
Exactly.
to reap
What's
the reward
in
of
it?
the risk.
What's in it for him?
Yes, because it wouldn't make sense for him to just take up some risk
Yeah,
without
because
reward. Ngwana says-
Ngwana says no.
When you look at your journey, the accumulation of the 20 years, right? What defining moments actually sparked the now desire to want to be in strategic business management and coaching, as well as consulting?
So I'm a maverick entrepreneur, right?
What's a maverick entrepreneur?
So I do more than one line of business. So for me, where I have landed now, to your question, has been shaped by a whole lot of things which I came across as I was growing out of my qualification. Logistics was a qualification that, from a logistic perspective, I became a buyer. From a buyer perspective, I started focusing primarily on procurement of certain commodities. From that, I started now to branch into preferential procurement and development of suppliers at a very early stage. And that shaped how I started viewing the element of SME development and growth and transformation. Because out of that, I then moved to Transnet head office. From Transnet head office, I then got headhunted to work at Siemens as a buyer, again, focusing on preferential procurement and BEE. So BEE became an angle at which I could start to focus on what do black suppliers need in a procurement system, within a supply chain, and for them to actually participate at a multinational perspective. So with that, it grew a need in me to want to see participation of black business in the mainstream. Firstly, it was in public sector, grew out from there, and then went into private sector. I think my job at that time was growing very fast, and my understanding was beyond my growth. It frustrated me being in a zone where I didn't have any decision making, right? And then while I was doing that, I then got to know about consulting. You see, when we grow up, we only know about being an employee, working as an employee. From there, you become a supervisor, then you become a manager, then you maybe become a senior manager, then you become a director. And that's the path that we are taught. We are never taught the path of you can get knowledge as a capital, get to know and master the job so that you can become an advisor, or you can become a director, or you become an owner, or you can become an entrepreneur. Those careers are not sold to us. They are not told to a young 4-year-old. And there's a reason I'm saying 4, because it starts there.
It's interesting, when I was introducing you to my daughter now, I told her you are smart. And she said, are you guys recording a podcast? Can you tell me about it later? I don't know if you heard her.
Yeah.
Say, please tell me.
tell me.
Tell me about the podcast
Yeah.
later when we drive. But you're right. Then it's not taught.
Yeah.
As you're saying. Continue
Exactly.
from
So it's
there.
not taught. And in my language, I'm from Pretoria, so raditula dilo tse, you know, it's like you come accidentally into these things. No one tells you that, okay, you can really build a career out of consulting. You can really build a career out of just being an advisor. You can build a career out of the academics. You go through academics until you reach PhD, and then you go back in to become, you know, an advisor, director, and whatever. So our old systems of doing career guidance are very limited in terms of how they shape the way we think and the way we actually put ourselves in the right position, right? Because it's important to be at the right place at the right time and then have the right information to participate. So I went into consulting with the view that I knew a little bit more now, right? I knew how to be an advisor to someone senior. The beauty about consulting that it takes you without a particular position to speak with people of a higher position because of your knowledge capital. So I then moved from Siemens into a small consulting firm in Bryanston. And with that, I thought, you know what, I'm ready. I know I can do this by myself. So I left the organization to join other guys who were independent consultants in the transformation and BE stage. And that was my first bite of the punch of business, where it just punched me in the face. And when I was still planning, then it just threw a punch straight in the middle. So I got to learn how to adapt, to become adaptable to a new structure. I also got humbled to understand that I am not ready to be in the consulting space. I needed to go and build and get to understand a different space. But at that time as well, I was about to get married, and there was too many things happening. I needed to jump back into the wagon of work. Humility had to set in to say, hey, you got to chill and look after the things that are much more important. I went back and started working again. And I think with that, it taught me that, you know, if you're going somewhere, pit stops are necessary. And I think it goes back to the question to say, what has shaped my understanding into where I am now versus where I was? I then got to understand and appreciate the fact that when you don't take care of the most softest, smallest things that are important, you can't achieve bigger things. You can't participate in bigger conversation. You can't put bigger deposits into bigger projects. So you've got to first sort out the most small things and then grow from that. And then once you're stable, you then work on the other stuff. even in entrepreneurship, you can't open today and become a mega organization. You're going to
Sure.
master the small things. When you become a master at those small things, you get to the next, and then that's how you build.
Why are people, in your opinion, not comfortable with the steps that you've just mentioned, where being comfortable with being small at the season where you are supposed to be small and growing gradually at the season where you are supposed to be growing gradually and not taking quantum leaps? Is it because there are other people growing exponentially? Is it because there are companies that are growing fast? Maybe because of factors that we are not seeing. Having a guarantor, having access to funding that one might not necessarily be having access to. Because a lot of people, what I've seen, there's a lot of frustration with starting small. And you seem to have the proper understanding of it. Perhaps maybe after you were kicked in the teeth by entrepreneurship, going back, you're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with actually starting small and building for 20 years. I mean, Sam Walton spent many years building Walton, and he was not a millionaire at the time until it was big and it was listed. Then he became a billionaire, right? But that what is it, in your opinion, that makes people frustrated with the process?
So I always tell people that work with me, they'll know money follows effort.
Money follows effort. Okay?
Money always money always follows effort. So the guys that grow too fast, they fall fast very quickly as well. So if you wanna fall fast, grow fast. Grow quicker than you can actually handle the growth. So you can see this by the law of business. Excuse me. The law of business is that every single year the top 500 companies in the world list changes. Every single year. Why?
Some fall off.
Some fall off.
Jeez.
Some new players join, and some fall off.
And it's normal.
And it's normal.
Yes, yes.
We thinking it's happening only there, but then you go the lowest of the lows. The lowest 500 list of 500 companies in the world. Some fall off. Whether you made 50 rands and tomorrow you make nothing, or you made 5,000 and tomorrow you make nothing, you either make it up or you fall off. So some of the businesses that have for years been up there and have grown, they eventually fall off. Or they demerger or diversify and they become something else, which is part of morphing in business. That the metamorphosis of business requires you to form into something else. You can't be the same thing as a business and then succeed. And also, you can't take the playbook of another organization and think it is going to be your playbook for you to succeed. So when you start seeing and reading about Airbnb, you read about Netflix, and you read the success story with the view that, okay, I can have that multiplier effect. But also read their failure stories and read how they have strategized to actually, become an organization that has got multiple verticals that come out of their original idea.
What does it mean that they have multiple verticals that come from the original idea? Do you mind explaining that?
All right. So the line that crosses from left to right, horizontal, top to bottom, vertical. How we are set as we do things, we always move from left to right. But we come across things that enhance our business from top to bottom. So in other words, if I am supplying water, right? It's my horizontal business, right? But if I want verticals in my business, I now start adding flavored water. I start adding vitamin water. I start adding weed water. I start adding water canisters. I start adding Stanley bottles for water. Those are verticals. So your business grows into other things that make the horizontal line remain. So business that only goes horizontal and is just water, it will die very soon.
Why?
Because you're not conscious of what the outside world is asking for. If I sell water and I come to you and I find that the way you're drinking the water is, I could advise you and I say, have you tried my flavored water? Or if I come to your business, I find that you have my water and you have another brand that's flavored water and it doesn't bother me, then I'm not in business. Because if I come and I sell you still water and I find you drinking flavored water, I will ask, why are you not buying the water from me? Then you say, but you don't sell flavored water. It's like, would you buy it from me if I have it tomorrow? So your business starts to have these verticals and it diversifies on the basis of you being alert. You don't walk blind into your client space, into your market and say, oh, fine, flavored water. And then I come again, you're using a cup and you're saying, hey, this water is warm. And I'm like, do you know that I'm selling Stanley's at a discount because I found a place when I can, order these things? Or I've got these coolers that you must get. Or I know that you're a whiskey drinker. Can I sell you cubes, plastic cubes, which I've infused with my water in there? Do I understand who I'm selling to? Do I make time to want to meet the need? Remember, business is just that. You've identified a need and you match it, and then you have somebody that's willing to pay.
And how does one apply that in the services business? Say, like what you've explained now, it's a horizontal line for a product.
Yeah.
Right? And then let's talk services. I'm in the service business. I'm a doctor, accountant, lawyer, engineer, whatever. I provide
one.
services. Consultant.
So if I'm a business consultant, or I'm a
Yes.
health consultant, or I'm a
Any
physical
kind of consultant.
any kind of consultant.
That where
Let's take
where
it to
people.
let me tell you. Let's take it to the most lowest space that people overlook, and we have a high supply of personal trainers in the gym.
Okay. It's services, right?
Service, right?
Yeah.
Their horizontal line is making sure that they provide an hourly rate for your physical training. Right?
Yeah.
You come to them, they see you every day. You talk about your pets, you talk about your family, you talk about everything else.
Sometimes they are psychologists.
Sometimes they listen and become psychologists. Sometimes they give you extra services,
Advice.
and advice. And others have gone into trouble because they have closed the gap where they were not supposed to close the gap. Right?
Oh, extra services.
Extra services.
Oh, okay.
But in
I
any
see.
case, for now, we're saying, if I come for gymming to you, if I look at the 360 construct of health, I want this person to lose weight. Do I partner or work with a nutritionist or an expert who works with supplements? Or I go and work with a psychologist? Or I work with somebody who is going to give motivation? Or I go and work with somebody who sells apparel? I don't gym naked. But if you can affect and impact my space of construct, I will always come for just that hour. And I can tell you for free, if ever the personal trainers, as they are today, were very diverse in thinking and they were looking at the verticals, they would be one of the richest guys walking around.
Why?
Because they would work on creation of these verticals and products that are centered around the livelihood of the people that they're helping to train.
Because they've inside info
They
to
have
those
the
people.
inside info, but they also have the ego levels of that person. They know the person at the weakest. They know the person at the highest. They know what makes those people tick.
So they've got a face-to-face market analysis.
They have a face-to-face business plan walking in front of them every other time. But most of them are fixated on the fact that ka 2 ke na le Mary, ka 7 ke na le Witness, ka 10 ke na le Thabo. Let me make sure that I have at least 10 in a day. And they work 16-hour days so that they can cover an hourly rate. They could work 8-hour days and in the other 8 hours sell the products and actually enhance on their lives. They are lifestyle consultants, but they see themselves as personal trainers.
How does one make that shift?
You have to have a
In
mental
any form
shift.
of business, yes. How do you
In
make
any
that
business,
shift?
you got to have a mental shift. So, one of the things that I try and coach people on is, can you see your next level? Have you visualized your next level? Have you visualized your next step? Do you understand what your business can become and ought to be? Because everyone can start a business. I promise you, anyone can start a business. But why do we go on vision, mission? Vision, mission statement. Right? Because people think this is theoretic. It's not theoretic. It's a lived experience. Business is a lived experience. You can't have a vision as a business to say you will become the next best African brand or consulting services company on the continent without actually putting the steps towards achieving that particular vision. I mean, there's so many people who attend vision board sessions.
Yep.
They go and they paste all of these things. They don't live it physically or mentally or psychologically.
So
They
you're saying
have it as a theory.
pasting it without it being a lived experience does not work?
Doesn't work. How do you do it? So if you let me ask you a typical question, right? When you plan to leave to go to a meeting, you first look at your diary and say, cut 12, cut 11, 10, I have a meeting at these following places. What do you call those?
Schedule.
It's a schedule, and the places you're going to, destinations.
Yes.
And then what does it require you to do?
To plan my trip.
To plan your trip. But will it happen if you sit there?
No, I have to move.
You have to move. It's an active, not a passive process. But guess what? You've already moved in your brain. You've already said, I hope there's no traffic. Why? Because you're living that moment already. I hope there's no traffic if I go between here and there. Oh, snap. You know what? I still need to make sure I come back at 4 because I need to pick up my daughter. You already picked up your daughter in your brain. You've lived that. It's an active movement. It's not passive.
So is that what determines, I won't be able to make the trip if I'm going to that meeting?
Exactly.
I must ask somebody else to do that.
Then it's a plan.
Right.
Then it's an alternative plan. So now if I say my vision as a company is to make 100,000, what is the roadmap to that? What is my lived experience of level 1, level 2, level 3? What is the destination? Destination is 100,000. But what are the pit stops in the space? What are the actions I need to take?
How does one design those? Say somebody's watching now, and they're saying, I'm looking for ways to get there. My goal is 100,000. What are the pit stops that I need to look at? Either whether I'm a services business or I've got a horizontal product that I'm selling.
How many hours do we have in the day?
24.
24 hours, right? If you can generate 1,000 rands in 24 hours, right? It might take you a similar effort. I'm not saying the same. Similar effort to raise another 2,000 rands in 24 hours. So your line of sight in terms of the way you think, your line of sight in the way you plan, and your line of sight in terms of executing will determine whether you move from 1,000 rands to 2,000 rands to 3,000 rands to 4,000, 5,000, 100,000. But also, your line of respect for the time you have will also determine the return you get. Now, once you start seeing that the formula works, you have the ability to take risk or not take risk will also determine your return. So if you look at what do I need to do in the day I have to deliver on the first assignment that I committed to, you've got to then say, I have to commit this. And if I commit to this, I must deliver with excellence. If I have delivered with excellence, it means that in my mind it's imprinted that I can deliver. Because no one can come in questions like, when you don't know how to make 1,000? After you've made 1,000. No one can say that, right? But someone can say, but you don't know you haven't made, they can't say you don't know. You haven't made 2,000. If you know how to make 1,000 within 24 hours, you've got to say, what will it take for me to make 2,000 within the same 24 hours? Do I respect my time? More than respecting your time, when you ask myself, do I respect my time, is you are not asking yourself you're respecting your time, you're respecting your client. If I am going to deliver this product that I have promised, can I get the return for it? So the promise I've made is that you will find the best water. Is it the best? It can be the best to me. Is it the best to my client? What is my client saying? If my client wants more, then I know that it's an increase in my revenue. If my clients talk to the neighbor around my water, then I know it's market expansion. If the neighbors now start saying, hey, we actually need this type of water in our area, that is a collective bargaining. They will come and say, can we buy it for a particular price?
Yeah.
Then your market grows, right? But it's
Yes.
how you're going to penetrate their thinking and respect their time and respect their rents for you to be getting to 100,000. So going back to that, if you have a lived experience of how you're going to get to the 100,000, you're going to have to work at asking yourself those questions. What are my clients looking for? How am I going to respect their time? How am I going to respect their money? How am I going to deliver to the promise? And when you do that, it becomes automatic. You continuously do the same things and you grow from there. Now, you start getting bored of the same things. That's when the verticals come in. Because you've mastered the water. But now you need to figure out the formula for sparkling water. Oh, now, if I guess it too much, then it tastes like this. What's your lived experience? If I get flavor, not to be too health conscious people, not to be too sweet, what is going on? Those are things that you need to be putting in. But if you say something and you don't deliver to it, you've broken the promise to yourself first before you broke the promise to your clients. Then you're a betrayer. You've betrayed yourself before you even betrayed your client. By the time you betray your client, it's done. It's money out of your bank. You're gone. You can't say, I know, I totally understand. Sorry, it was a mistake. No. Sometimes you only get one shot.
So, what then do you think are the challenges that you see affecting the African business landscape? And
African or South African?
South African. Or it could be either or, right? It could be South African, could be African, because I do believe that South Africans need to look into Africa as an opportunity to do business. It's open for business, right? So when you look at the South African landscape and the African landscape, what do you think the challenges are? Of course, they will be different. And then which are the opportunities that you think are emerging for local and African entrepreneurs? So it's a two-pronged question. Yeah.
So you see the rest of Africa, because I think we as South Africans have got this mentality that we are in South Africa and then there's Africa.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a very messed up mentality.
Yeah, that's why when I said African, you said South African or African.
Yeah, South African or rest of Africa.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we understand. So there's South Africa
Yeah.
and the rest of Africa. The reason being the dynamics are totally different on a free market system and the way our markets are developed and also our banking system, which is highly controlled in terms of the money flow and highly secured in terms of how money can flow in and out from a South, which is a benefit and also a less benefit in terms of the cash market, right? Because when you go to the rest of Africa, it's a very high cash market versus credit market. So in South Africa, we are very much credit dependent and credit worthiness dependent, while the rest of Africa, we are experience, cost, and affordability dependent, which is cash market in most of the cases. Unless if you go into a corporate level, where the corporates can trade amongst each other and they have a SWIFT and whatever, and they have a connecting account with a Barclays or whatever international bank that exists. But at a ground level, it's a cash market. It's how much am I getting for this? Am I getting value? Am I paying for it? That's it. But with us, from a South African perspective, at a very minute level, at a very micro level, when you're buying things that are high consumables, fast-moving goods, it's still a cash market in the streets. But once you get into money that requires you to be swiping, to be buying on credit card, it requires a level of credit worthiness, right? So for me, I think I have a little bit of appreciation from a South African perspective than the rest of Africa, because I think that's a market I want to completely learn around the FMCG goods, in saying how can we bring our well-developed products that we have maybe support and we have some market to take it to the rest of Africa using the Africa Trade Agreement, because I think those things are very much beneficial if we use it as a springboard to grow and maximize on the numbers. So that, I mean, everybody talks about Africa having the youngest population and also being the biggest consumer market that all global organizations, global companies, global countries are looking at. So why are we not looking at it as a bigger thing? So where do I see opportunity? So the businesses that I would potentially invest in, it's where I see the opportunities, right? Food security is always going to be a requirement. So in other words, anything that has to do with foods, agro-processing, sourcing of food and reselling of food is always going to be a commodity that everybody consumes on a daily basis. So whether you are starting a brand that is going to grow in making condiments, making coffee, making all of these things that are consumed on a daily basis, I would invest in that business if the business model makes sense and it's able to grow and it can scale. Because we can make coffee, but can it grow? Can it scale? Is it different from the other stuff that are there, right? The one element which I'm busy trying to help some organization on is the clothing space.
Yeah.
So the reusing and remodeling or thrifting and reselling of clothes to people.
Yes.
Not looking at the high-end market, but looking at mid to below market for them to access high-quality clothing. Because I think post-94, we've had an influx of multiple different quality of clothing that is there, right? And the third part is on the technology front. Technology that is used by us as individuals on a regular basis, either hardware or including even software. Because if you look at how the growth of AI has actually given us the opportunity to explore how far technology can go. So for some of us who've had the privilege of working in a technology company, we know what technology has been doing prior to the big hype around AI. But if one starts to think, how does technology get to be absorbed into consumer level? It usually starts with the military at the country level, where people innovate and come up with things that are destructive or protective. And then it comes down into corporate, where corporates then consume these technologies and then it goes to the market. But now the destructive nature is that technology does not need to start at a military base now. It can start at a consumer level and then grow outward towards military and also corporate, right? So for me, innovators that come up with technologies that solve for the majority of people, then it can help to get to another level. We've got problems in South Africa around water safety, water cleanliness, and all of that. We need to understand what could be developed to help that type of thing. We've got alternative energy solutions that are coming. But then with a lot of these alternative energy solutions that are coming, how do you monitor, how do you report, how do you make sure that the technology that you can bring forth can be made available to even, the lowest level of LSM for the people? Something that people can consume without even them blinking and utilizing. So those are just some of the things that I would potentially invest in as an investor or as a person that would give advice for business, because that helps to really give someone elements of growth. And the challenges would be the same. Access to funding, it's always going to be a challenge, and people mention it. But guess what? With a good product and a good scaling ability, you can attract the right investors, even if they come in at an equity level where they're giving you advice.
Guys, if you're watching this, you must remember that on the 3rd of May, we've got the It's More Than Just Money Business and Property Seminar that is happening. Please click on the link in the description box. It's a web tickets link and you'll get all the information that you need. So, in your role as the chairperson of the BMW Enterprise and Supply Development Trust, as well as chairperson-elect for the Rustenburg Community Development Trust, what initiatives are you most passionate about?
So, my role is to help lead the the team, the board of trustees on both ends, and almost ignite the same passion I have for people, right? My biggest purpose is to work with other people, develop communities, and impact them positively, take them from where they were to a different place of them growing. So we work with entrepreneurs in the automotive industry from a BMW perspective. And then at the Rustenburg Community Development Trust perspective, we work with villages and communities and royal heads to try and look at three key areas where there is either economic development, agriculture and agro aligned processes, and then manufacturing, and then other special projects which are there, which can string between health, between youth development, between the support for NPOs. But then the common thread there is how can we impact people positively to understand their role in developing themselves and developing the spaces they live in, and also grow their own organizations. If it's a small business, from a funding perspective, we want to understand how they are going to grow in the automotive industry and become a bigger supplier. Because when you look at the automotive industry, it's very broad, but they are tiered, the multi-tiers that are there that are required for you to be one day a supplier at BMW, one day a supplier at VW. You don't just become say, no, I can do seats. There's so many things that are involved. But it's also understanding and learning the ropes of what will it take from a compliance perspective, what will it take from a growth perspective, infrastructure, and a whole lot of things to grow into a space where you can become a supplier. And then from the community side is what do we need to do as a community to align to the strategy that the RCDT is working towards. And with that, it makes it easier for the conversation. Because remember, non-alignment requires that we have to think twice as hard on your proposition and the conversation you're bringing. Then we have to go back and do a consultation and say, is this idea really relevant? Is this aligned to a strategy? Then we have to go back and say, okay, fine, is this budgeted for? You see?
Right.
But then when you're aligned and you have a clear vision of what you want to do, and you've aligned that to how there's a meeting of minds, it makes it easy for us to have a conversation. To say, oh, yeah, fine, but maybe change A, B, C, D. We're not doing that. We're not supporting that. So yeah, that's that. I mean, it also applies in business. I won't work with people that don't align to my vision. I don't work with people that even may want to pay for my services if it doesn't align to my values.
And with the rapid pace of change, right? I can hear you very knowledgeable, but how do you continue to educate yourself and stay ahead of industry trends?
So I came across a quotation recently of Liu Jian, the Xiaomi founder, who says that people think that hard work is what builds you and grows your business, and actually investing in self or self-growth is what will actually build you to succeed and multiply in your business construct. So I work a lot with other people that I learn from. Secondly, I read out shorter versions of reading. I'm not a big book reader, so I read short versions of information, Harvard Business Review, and reports and stuff like that are there. I watch a lot of YouTube conversations and explanations of things. What is leverage, what is investment, so that you can get to understand at the basic level. Because remember, those snippets are broken down into 15, 20 minutes videos, but then there's a book that is very thick that requires you to read it over 5-6 months. So I do a lot of that. And I also have mentors and coaches. So I always look out for time with a mentor, time with the coaches. And I surround myself with people that know more than me.
Right. So, sitting here, I get the privilege of asking the questions, right? And I get to hear it firsthand. But there are people watching here. Some are sitting at home, they're not working, they're starting out. Some are owning successful businesses. But there's somebody sitting there saying, Thabo, I don't know what step to take tomorrow, right? Is there anything you would like to share with that person? You know, perhaps a final thought on leadership, resilience, the power of innovation, starting small, whatever it is that's in your heart, looking through that camera, speaking to that young guy. It might be a young Thabo at 21, starting out. What would you have loved to hear from somebody of your caliber?
So, before I answer the question in full, the privilege we never get is to be given the right advice at all times. And so sometimes we assume the information we get from other people that are better than us or older than us when it comes to what we want to do in our lives is the right advice, and it's not necessarily the right thing, right? And so you have to be, at a very early age, be able to filter information that you know or you can have a gut feel that it's not going to benefit you. And how do you do that? The first step that you do is always validate the information that you get. If someone tells you about something, don't adopt it the first time and say, this is how things are done. Because there will be a second opinion, a third opinion, and a fourth opinion. If the opinions align, then you've validated number one. And which is the same thing. If you're going to go into business and you've got an idea, find one or two people to validate your business idea on the basis that you can explain it very clear, so that you can know that at least the direction you're taking has been validated. And those people could potentially, if you ask them a question, would you potentially buy this? Would you use this service? And find authentic people that will give you a yes. And even if you don't get 4 yeses and you get 2 yeses, you've already gone through the process of finding out why the other 2 will not say yes. Now, because not everybody is going to be an entrepreneur, and everybody else might be looking for a different, opportunity. To the young guys out there, if I look back on my almost 30 years of life in where I've started, where I was, I never was ashamed of where I come from. I was never ashamed. And my friends came from potentially well-off or better families than I did, but I was never ashamed to take them to where I live and to show them where I lived, because it was a different learned experience for them as well. And that helped me to not be at a certain level or standard that was above what I could afford and what I could do as something that was expected of me. So number one, be authentic about where you come from. You don't know the lessons you're learning. If you are coming from a poverty-stricken place, you just don't know what lessons you're learning. And if you're coming from a rich place, you don't know what you potentially are missing as lessons in life. And then the second thing to do after being authentic, you've got to be very strict about your growth, and you've got to be very strict about where you want to go. Live before you get to that space. Visualize it, write it down, make it a goal, and work hard at it, right? So that you tomorrow don't blame your circumstance or blame somebody for not achieving those things. These are pedals along the way and are also stepping stones for us to be able to achieve. And then the third thing, be disciplined about time. If you promise to do something and you don't do it, you are building a code that you don't deliver, you don't finish, and you don't live up to what you have promised. And lastly, make sure that when you deliver with excellence. I always tell people, the first goal that you can achieve is making your bed. Then you know you've achieved one goal. And then you can start making your bed every day, you've developed a habit. And now if you can make your bed all the time, and now you do it with precision and it looks like a hotel, you've mastered the art. Start small. If you can't make your own bed, you can't run a business, you can't run other things. And if you can't do it very well, sometime later in your life you will outsource it to a helper. But then when you're still living in your room, make your bed as a starting point. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate you taking time to share your thoughts. I know how busy you are. So from me to you, from representing our audience, I'm saying thank you on their behalf. You know, a lot of people write to us after conversations that have impacted them. And they say, I've started a business because of that conversation. I changed my business model because of that conversation. And I believe this is going to be one of those conversations where somebody says, because of that conversation you had with Thabo Makama, this is what I've done and this is where I've gotten. So from me to you, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and to those that are listening, I love what this man is doing, and I appreciate also the privilege to be here. The privilege to be listened to can never be taken for granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, guys. If that did not inspire you, teach you, nudge you, educate you, I don't know what will. You know, this is one of the conversations where you have to take a pen and paper and listen to over and over and over again. Very technical, but takes you to a certain level when it comes to thinking, business, and also being able to map out your entrepreneurial journey. From myself and my team broadcasting from Johannesburg, South Africa, it's more than just money. We'll see you in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.